Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Endless Party.
Welcome back, friends. We're glad you're here.
We are so glad you're here. Today, in this episode, we are going to be answering two questions. Number one is, how do you know if somebody is the one?
Mm-hmm.
And number two, if they are the one, how do you stay in love for a lifetime and beyond?
Two major questions, and I think everybody asks those questions at least one time in their life.
Yes, which is why we're here to hopefully offer some answers to these questions.
Yes.
Such an important part in life is relationships, and specifically your marriage relationship. I think a big thing that everybody, something that will either make or break your life is who you marry.
Absolutely.
And what you choose to do with your marriage.
Mm-hmm.
And Elijah and I have seen a lot of successful people with great marriages, and I think they can attribute a lot of their success to their marriage.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, even Napoleon Hill, he wrote Think and Grow Rich, and he says, behind every great man is a greater woman. And I've found that to be true within our own marriage, but I've also seen that in countless others, that people that are just incredibly successful in all areas of life. They are, in essence, a power couple. And not saying that you can't be a very successful person if you're not married or anything like that, but personally, I've found that being married has incredible benefits. Incredible benefits. So let's answer the questions on how do you know if they're the one and how to stay in love for a lifetime.
Okay. Question number one is, if someone told you you're a lot like your partner, would this be a compliment to you?
Yes, it would be a compliment to me. But I think that's a better question for everybody to ask themselves. You know, would it be a compliment to you if somebody told you you're a lot like your partner? And if the answer is no,
good question.
Yeah, if the answer is no, you might want to take a look at your relationship and see if that's the person that you actually want to be with.
Right. I think everybody is going to have obviously a different story about how they fall in love, who they fall in love with, why, how, where, what, right? But something that I loved in our story is when I met you and when we started to get to know each other, you were someone who made me better.
Yeah.
I saw things in you that I really loved and I wanted to implement them myself. And one of those things was your just obvious discipline, and you were just unapologetically going to work as hard as you could to be successful. And I loved that so much. And it's been really cool because being around you, I feel like I've gotten to adopt some of your really positive, traits.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's why it's so important that you marry someone whose traits you want to adopt, because whether you like it or not, you're going to start to become more like your partner.
Mm-hmm. I actually look at all of my siblings as examples. I look at our aunts and uncles as examples because they're the people we're closest to in a very large sense. And it's interesting to see how they become their spouse.
Mm-hmm.
You really wear off on each other for good or for bad. And in every way, shape, or form, all of my siblings and all of their relationships, they gain both the good and the bad qualities of their spouse. And I could say the same about me and Meg, right? So sometimes you can even see in relationships that you fluctuate a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
You both kind of go to bad habits, then you both go to good habits.
Yes.
And you both, we've seen that even the past few months while we've been trying to transition with our new babies and the twins and figuring out how our life looks among all the chaos. But what's cool is if you are with that right person, you have an accountability partner. And they will keep you accountable to being the best version of yourself. Because I think how do I want to phrase this? Phrase it this way: if I was the man that Meg thinks I am, or if I was the man my wife thinks I am, by now I would be incredibly successful. And I think it's vice versa with everybody, right? Be the man that your spouse thinks you are. And if you do that, I don't think you can fail.
Mm-hmm.
right? Because in my eyes, my wife is the most incredible human being I've ever met and the most incredible person. And if I am anything like her, then I'm doing a good job. And I hope that each of you can say the same about your spouse. And so the first question that you need to ask yourself, whether or not he or she is the one, if someone told you you're a lot like your partner, would this be a compliment to you?
Yes. There's something I wanted to add really
Yeah,
quick.
for sure.
Within our relationship and within marriage, I've found, this kind of goes back to what we were saying, but in terms of habit. So I feel like it's easier to fall into bad habits when you're married, but on the flip, it's easier to break them together.
Oh, yeah.
So, like, I feel like if we adopt a bad habit jointly, it's, like, easier to stay in it because you and I are both going to be, you know, sharing that same bad habit. But, for example, like, lately we've been trying to master our phones.
Yeah.
And be better about setting really strict boundaries on our phones so that we're enjoying the most of life and, like, spending life not behind a screen. Anyways, and because you and I have, like, you know, decided to do this together, it has been so much easier to break. In fact, it's probably the easiest habit I've ever broken.
I would agree.
Because we're both accountable to each other. Mm-hmm. And so I just wanted to add that because I feel like that's a good example.
No, I think that's a perfect example of how your relationships can make you better.
Yes.
And it is so much easier to break a bad habit with Meg being my accountability partner. Interestingly enough, I'm going to share this. This might be a little TMI, but I think a lot of guys have this problem. If you go into the bathroom with your phone, you are going to be on the toilet for 45 minutes, and nobody, unless you have a severe IBS problem, then you shouldn't be on the toilet for 45 minutes. And so I told Meg, I was like, dude, I can't bring my phone into the bathroom. Like, if I do, I am just scrolling or playing games, like just wasting my life on a toilet with a phone. And so I asked her, I was like, hey, you just need to, like, help me be accountable and just not take my phone in the bathroom with me. And it's been such an easy habit to break.
It changed overnight.
That's
like,
that's what's insane is that immediately it'll change because you now have somebody that's going to keep you accountable, and it's not just yourself. And I think that's the power that a marriage can have, is if you choose to elevate your life, you get to elevate it together, and because of that, the results are 2 times, I would even say 4 times as fast.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, jumping into question number 2 that we are going to give you as food for thought, that also we're going to answer is, are you truly fulfilled or just less lonely?
That's a huge question to ask, especially if you are in the beginning stages of a relationship. I would even say in college. Because college can be incredibly lonely. It's the first time for a lot of people in their lives that they are completely by themselves. Mm-hmm. They've moved away from family. A lot of times they've moved away from friends. And because of that, they're kind of trying to find who they are as just an independent individual, right? And so a lot of times I see, even for myself, get in relationships with people who aren't going to bring out the best in you, that are just filling the void of you being lonely.
Yes. This is kind of like a Meg thought. It's something that I've discovered. I think people do the dumbest stuff when they're lonely.
Yes.
Including get in bad relationships. Yeah. You know, we all have this innate need that we want to be loved and we want to be, you know, we want to share a life with someone. Yeah. It's within all of us. And so when that isn't being filled and we're feeling lonely, I think that's when people make their worst mistakes. And I think it's when people jump into their worst relationships too.
I would agree. I mean, that I've seen that happen in my own life. I've seen that happen with so many of those that I care about, so many of those that I love. I mean, what's so crazy too is that when people get in a bad relationship, it seems like everybody knows except the person in the relationship.
I know.
Right? Like I can look back at my siblings' relationships that were just garbage. And from the beginning, I was like, this person? Really?
Yeah, like, we have like associates, and we've seen who they decide
to
do.
Like, what?
This doesn't make a lot of sense.
Right, and then eventually a lot of them ended up with incredible people.
Yeah, they're all married, great people.
Yeah, and so, like, I'm not even criticizing them in any way, shape, or form, Sometimes you kind of have to go through those bad relationships to find the good one. And so I'm not going to fault anybody for that. However, that's why you need to ask yourself, are you truly fulfilled or are you just less lonely? Is this person truly helping you become the best version of yourself, or are you just filling a void?
Right. Okay, question number 3. Are you able to be unapologetically yourself, or do you feel the need to show up differently to please your partner?
That's a deep one. If you're not yourself with your partner, then you shouldn't be with them.
I agree.
Right? Like, you can't consistently perform in a manner that is inconsistent with your true self. And I can genuinely say that I am my authentic person, probably even too much with my wife.
I feel like we're more ourselves than ever.
I would agree.
I feel like through you, I've actually found like who I am, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And you and I are singing at the top of our lungs, and we're joking every day, and we're having all of these experiences, and I just feel very true to who I am because of your support.
Yeah, and I would say the same. It goes hand in hand. If one of you is able to be your authentic self, then the other one is going to be able to do the same. And if you can't do that in a relationship, you are going to be miserable forever if you choose to be in that relationship.
You gotta be you, man. You gotta be you.
Right. You just really, like, you do.
I think this next question is pretty good. Are you in love with who your partner is as a whole, or are you only in love with their good side, their potential, or the idea of them?
That's a deep one too, you know? I actually think that's a really great question, because even in marriage, one of the things that they say when you're first getting married is like, this is the traditional marriage, right? It's like, do you take this person
for better
or for worse, till death do you part, all the things, right? I don't know word for word. But that's what you have to ask yourself. You have to really discover for yourself if you are willing to be with this person through thick and thin, their good side, their bad, their ugly, every part of them. And if the answer's no, you're going to have a major problem. Right? And I would even argue this too, to the point, if you do not think your spouse is beautiful, this is mainly for the men, if you don't think your partner is beautiful without makeup on, that's a problem. Like, you got to love them always in their authentic self. You got to make sure that you think they are the most beautiful person in the world. You got to make sure that they are the one that you choose on a daily basis, because if the answer's not, then you're with the wrong person. It's just fact.
I think it's cool. I think you can like say that as in like physical makeup, but also like their makeup in terms of like
their facade.
Yeah, their facade that they have. Do you really love who they are at their core? Here's the thing. Elijah and I are familiar enough with each other that we now really understand each other's weaknesses and the darker parts of us, which every human has. And I don't, it's not that I'm like in love with those weaknesses, or those dark parts, but like, I just love you as a whole. I love you even because you have those rough edges. I'm okay with those, and I'm okay, like, I don't know if I'm making any sense.
No, I think you are making sense.
It's not like I'm in love with your mistakes or my mistakes.
No, of course not. But here's what's actually kind of interesting about it, right? So I think in a very large part, our weaknesses can become our strengths. Yeah. I think they can ultimately shape our lives for better or for worse if we allow them to. And let's take a step back for a second. You have to be incredibly vulnerable with your partner, and especially your spouse, and in marriage. You are now trusting this person with every good, every bad, every ugly side of you. And that's a lot to ask of anybody, right? Like, you're my one person that I am choosing to trust with everything, and vice versa. But because of that, you are also the one person that can help me turn those weaknesses into a strength.
And love that.
And you love that.
For example, I have a temper, okay? And I've been working on it. And I think, like, I'm going to call out my own weakness because I don't want to,
Yeah, for sure.
I don't know if I'm speaking for you, but I feel like you love me for my temper, in the sense that you love that, in like that weakness about me, because you're watching me trying to correct it, and to you, like, that's something like admirable.
It's admirable,
Like, for
yes.
example, something that you struggle with but that I'm watching you daily to correct. I love that that's actually part of you, and that you're working so hard to like turn it into that strength. You know?
Well, actually, that's what it comes from. That's why we stopped the phone thing, because I saw somebody that I really care about want to hold my babies, and they were holding my babies, and they were just on their phone scrolling the whole time, not even
and our
interacting.
baby's just sitting there like,
right, just like glued to the screen.
it was horrible.
And I was just going nuts. But then I thought to myself, oh my gosh, I do that. I do that same thing. Like, I'm getting mad at this person for doing the exact same thing that I do on a consistent basis. And so I remember coming home that night, and I was talking to Meg, and I was like, Meg, like, I need to change this. Like, I need to fix this. And instead of like condemning me and being like, yeah, you're really bad about it and you're so garbage and blah, 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 you're like, oh, like, yeah, let's do this together. Like, I can see that this bothers you, and I can see that like this is something that you're struggling with. So like, let's fix this.
Yes, and I like love you for it.
Right. And I think that's what's so great about being in the right relationship, is that you do take every part of this person. They're good, they're bad, and they're ugly. And then you help them and support them in every aspect, and accept them for who they are, but also accept them for what they can be.
Yeah.
I think that's what's admirable about it.
Yes. Okay, let's jump into the last question you should ask to know if somebody is the one. Would you want your future or imagined child to date someone like your partner?
Yeah, that's a really deep question to ask yourself. Would you want your future or imagined
Like,
children, or your current children?
Would I want B and Winnie to end up with someone like you? And I can honestly say yes,
Right.
hands down, yes.
Right. And like our daughters are, well, girls.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't want them to end up with someone like Meg, because they're girls. But I do want them to end up like Meg. I want them to end up like their mother. And I think that's what you have to ask yourself with your future children.
I think you should share the story that, we're not calling anybody out, but I think you should share the story your mom, like what she shared with you when you were working through a certain relationship, and a question she asked. I feel like this is
that's a great
question.
So before I met Meg, I was in a relationship. No fault to the girl. She's a good, nice girl, but we weren't right for each other.
Wasn't right.
Just wasn't it. And one time I was fighting with my parents about her being the right one and all the things. And this isn't always the case, but I'm going to sidestep for a minute. But a lot of times the people that love you most, if they're struggling to see that this person is the one for you, you should probably take a second look at that relationship. Because
just look at it with an open heart. Just really discover.
Because a lot of times, at least in my case, my parents do want what's best for me, and so do my siblings. And when they were questioning this relationship, I really should have been questioning it with an open heart and an open mind. Now, back to the story, my mom said something that resonated me and still resonates with me to this day, and she just goes, is this the person that you want raising your future children? And I honestly could not say yes. And because of that, that's what made me kind of question, oh, I might not be in the right relationship. This might not be what's best for me and my future family. And so that's really what question 5 encompasses too. It's like, would you want your future children to date or end up with somebody like the person that you are currently dating? And if the answer is no, you need to really take a hard look at your relationship and see whether or not you should even be in it in the first place.
Mm-hmm. The reason why Elijah and I think, wanted to do this podcast is we're in this phase of life where we're married, but a lot of our friends and close family members aren't.
Yeah.
And we're watching them in this really exciting time where they're starting to date people and get into serious relationships. And a lot of times they come to us and they're like, explaining what's going on, or, just explaining the dynamic of the relationship, because that's oftentimes what you do when you're in one.
Yeah.
Anyways, and there's been times where we're like, wow, like this is such a great relationship, like yes, pursue it. And there's other times where we're like, we don't think it's quite right. But I feel like if you can ask yourself all 5 of these questions and answer like yes, then I think you can definitely know that like they're the one. Because now in my marriage, in my relationship with you, I can ask myself these questions and like I have a resounding yes to all of them. Yeah. And I would have been able to answer yes when we were dating too.
Yeah, and that's what I was going to mention too, is taking this back to when we first started courting each other and dating each other. I could answer yes to all 5 questions. Like these 5 questions have always been yeses to for the entirety of our 4-year relationship. And so that's what you like. These are universal. Mm-hmm. You will either be able to answer yes to these questions or no. And
then you'll know what to do.
And then you'll know what to do. And then you'll know how to act and whether or not you should end the relationship or continue. So I want to just reread them real quick for all of you. So number 1, if someone told you were a lot like your partner, would this be a compliment to you? Number 2, are you truly fulfilled or just less lonely? Number 3, are you able to be unapologetically yourself, or do you feel the need to show up differently to please your partner? Number 4, are you in love with who your partner is as a whole, or are you only in love with their good side, their potential, or the idea of them? And number 5, would you want your future or imagined child to date someone like your partner? So ask yourself these questions before even entering into a relationship, whether you're currently in a relationship, and just throughout your relationship. Because maybe it's time for you to step up your game, not just your partner.
Yes, I really like those. Okay, so that's how you figure out if your person is the one. And now we get to jump into some more fun stuff. If they are the one, how do you stay in love for a lifetime and beyond?
And beyond.
How are you going to do it?
So, Albert Einstein shows us a way how not to.
He was a genius, right?
So smart. But he was really, really dumb in this aspect.
And you'll see why.
Okay, and I will say, like, no fault to him, women are very hard to understand. Okay, I'm not even being judgmental. Like, we are just 2 different creations. So that's why Mr. Gottman and his PhD partners wrote this book. It's called A Man's Guide to Women. A lot of the stuff that we talk about comes from this book as a source.
It's probably one of my favorites Elijah's ever read.
It's a great read for anybody out there, including women. You should read it because it'll just help you even understand men a little better and how we think and why women are so foreign to us. Will Ferrell actually said, understanding women is like trying to smell the color 9, which is just insane because it's so accurate. And it's not a bad thing. Like, that's what's so incredible about women is that they are intricate, that they are unique, that they are special, and that we as men get to decipher this wonderful, beautiful, curvy puzzle. And that's what this book attempts to do. And so it's pretty cool. But Albert Einstein made a mistake with his first wife, and he gave her a list of demands that she was meant to meet if she wanted to stay with him.
She wanted to be his wife.
Yeah. So I'm going to read through them real quick, and you can
These are just
decide
insane.
for yourself whether or not this was a good idea. So he said, A, you will make sure, 1, that my clothes and laundry are kept in good order. 2, that I will receive my 3 meals regularly in my room.
In his room, not even out
3,
with the family.
That my bedroom and study are kept neat, and especially that my desk is left for my use only. B, you will renounce all personal relations with me insofar as they are not completely necessary for social reasons, specifically forego 1, my sitting at home with you, 2, my going out or traveling with you. C, you will obey the following points in your relations with me. 1, you will not expect any intimacy from me, nor will you reproach me in any way. 2, you will stop talking to me if I request it. 3, you will leave my bedroom or study immediately without protest if I request it. And D, you will undertake not to belittle me in front of our children, either through words or behavior. So I'm sure you can guess that his wife just agreed to every single one of these demands and was like, yep, yes, sir, I'll do exactly what you say. I am your servant. I am here to serve.
No, she left him.
She left him within 2 months, took the children,
and his prize money.
all of his Nobel Prize money. And quite frankly, she deserved it. My days. Like, what were you thinking, brother? So, if you want to be in love for a lifetime, and after weeks, months, years, even decades, like Meg and I.
Yes, like us.
Never give them a list of demands that they are meant to meet. That is ridiculous.
That would just make me so mad.
Yeah. And number 2 is never think that you all know all there is to know about your partner. Your partner is continually going through life every single day, just as you are, and they are growing and they are maturing and they are thinking and evolving. So there's no possible way that I know everything there is to know about my wife. Just like there's no possible way that she knows every single thing there is to know about me. And that's a great thing, because that just means that we are able to continually learn and love each other.
I would say that there is something new to be learned about your partner every day. Like, even if we're just having a normal conversation, stories will come up, or things you believe in, or ideas will come up, and I can be like, I did not know that about you. And
Right.
we've been married 3 years.
Yeah. And then we've been in a relationship for 4.
Yeah, and there's still things that come up, and I'm like, oh, I didn't know that about you.
Yeah,
That's
likewise.
Good. That's good to know.
And I think that's what's so cool about it, is that you can continually learn more about your partner every single day. So never think that you know all there is to know about them. Always be curious. Always be searching for more, because there's always more to learn about them. So, in my sense, I guess it's this, right? With your partner, find out their hopes, their dreams, their fears, their likes, their dislikes, what scares them, what excites them. That's how you keep the love in your relationship alive, is that you continually search for everything there is to know about them. And just be curious. I think that's a huge aspect of staying in love and remaining in love forever. Yeah.
One thing that I think is really helpful too in staying in love, I think it's all about being intentional. And this is, for example, are you intentionally trying to stay in love with them? Are you intentionally trying to still date them? Are you intentionally trying to make their life better?
Right. And that's how you stay in love.
I think so.
Jordan Peterson actually says something really cool.
I love this, by the way.
He says that you should always search for the person that you fell in love with. And I think that's where a lot of people go wrong, is that there is this stage that you're dating and that you're courting and that you love every aspect about this person.
And you're in love with everything.
You are.
About them.
You absolutely, you're mesmerized by them.
Mm-hmm.
And I will say that euphoria does fade a little bit, because then your love evolves into something greater.
But you can still find it.
And that's what Jordan Peterson even says, is that you have to continually look for the person that you fell in love with. And I think that's what Meg just emphasized, is that you have to be really intentional about it.
Yes.
You can't just expect that you are going to be in love for a lifetime. Love is an action word. You have to continually fall in love.
There are still moments in our relationship where I have this giddy euphoria, just that I am your wife, that we're together, that life is good, and it's so sweet to me that we'll be hanging out and laughing and just having a party, and it takes me back to that courtship days, but also it's still going on right now.
Yeah,
after
4 years of dating, 3 years of marriage, and 2 babies,
we're still pals.
We still have that, right? And I think that's the biggest thing, is you have to continually look for it and deliver it and give it, right? And so Jordan Peterson makes reference, continually look for the person that you fell in love with. But I will say this too, is if you begin to look for the faults and flaws in your spouse, you will
You'll
find them. There's a story of a woman. She attended this big meeting, like it was some type of seminar, marriage seminar, and whoever gave the seminar was a moron. But she said, hey, I want everybody here to go home and with their spouse, make a list of everything they don't like about one another. So she decided that she was going to do this exercise with her husband. So she goes home and tells her husband this, and she says, over this evening, we're going to write it, and then we'll give them to each other in the morning. Before he leaves for work, she gives him the list of everything that she doesn't like about him. And then she goes, where's my list? He's like, oh, I left it on the counter. And then he leaves for work. She goes and looks on the counter. There's a single red rose and a note that says, sweetheart, I love everything there is to love about you. Like, you have no faults to me. And he goes, and if you do have any faults, why would I need to make reference to them when you are already trying to work on them yourselves? And that's what it means to be in a marriage. Meg knows her faults and flaws better than I do. So why would I begin to criticize those when I have faults and flaws of my own that I need to correct? And that's what it is to be married and be in a loving relationship, is that you continually look for the good in each other.
And you have this opportunity to support and elevate and influence this person.
Yeah.
And help them reach their full potential. Like, you have the power to do that.
Yeah.
You know, besides believing in myself, I need Elijah to believe in me in order for me to reach my full potential. And because he does, I feel like I'm getting there every day. I couldn't do it without him. I know I couldn't.
And I agree. I would say the same thing about my wife. I remember when we were first married, my mom, like she I don't know what it was exactly that she was, or what I did or something. But my mom said, like, Meg, aren't you going to correct him? And she was talking about me. And Meg goes, no, I'm not his mom.
No, I'm not.
She's like, why would I correct him? Like, I'm his wife. I'm not his mom. Like, he's a big kid, you know, like he can make his own decisions.
To be his mom.
Yeah. And I think that's what it is about marriage too. Like, don't go to correct your spouse. Don't go and look for the faults and flaws. Help them, build them. And in turn, they're going to do the same for you. And they are also going to want to be better because they have your support and your love. And I think that's what I've loved about our marriage, is Meg never once has come to me and says, you need to like correct this. But I will say, I have come to her and I've said, I've needed to correct this. And she's been like, you know, I've noticed that like this has been bothering you. Never once has she been like, yeah, you do. Like, you're so trash. Like, you need to do better. But instead, she's like, I know this has been a lot for you, and like I'm here like for whatever you need.
Like, let's work through this. Let's do it.
Yeah. And that's what it means to be in a good relationship.
I think so.
Stay in love for a lifetime and beyond, and that's how.
Mm-hmm.
You know, look for the good in each other, not the faults. Look for the person that you fell in love with. So there is a couple things I wanted to reference. One is at the heart of every failed relationship is two things: distrust and betrayal. And you can always look back to that and find that that's the reason that people's relationships ended: distrust and betrayal. Mm-hmm. So Gottman gives 6 suggestions to bulletproof your relationship. And so we're going to go through those and really just decipher how it is that you can bulletproof your relationship. When you do have that, you find the one and you want to remain committed for a lifetime and beyond.
Yes. So number 1 is the 6-second kiss.
We're going to kiss for 6 seconds right now. I'm just kidding. So the 6-second kiss, he actually has some science to back it up. And he says that after 6 seconds, that's when oxytocin is released. That is when trust is built. And he says anytime before that is too short for that to occur.
We'll be leaving the house and Elijah's like, wait, you have to give me a 6-second kiss?
Usually I do 7 because we go that extra mile.
Yeah,
we
always do.
Should we go 7-second
and
kiss?
so we do. It's actually funny because, like, I feel like kisses goodbye are like maybe half a second. So to stand there and kiss for like 6 seconds, it's like it's awesome, but it's a little funny.
It is
but
funny.
It's a good thing for our
relationship. It does actually strengthen your relationship just in that sense alone, because it allows you to have some humor.
But also it's like, okay, we're being intentional. We're really saying goodbye right now.
Yeah,
we're gonna
I
miss
just want
each
you
other.
to know I love you. While I'm apart, I will think of you.
Number 2, we kind of already touched on. It's date her. Look for the person you fell in love with and continually date them.
Yeah, and I mean actually go on dates with them.
Yes.
Like take them out. I said this a few weeks ago, or in a few previous podcasts. We went on our first date since the twins were.
It was like a first date.
It was so bizarre. Like I was so awkward. I was more awkward on this date than I was on our first date.
Married for 3 years.
It was so bad. Like I did such a horrible job.
It's fine.
But then it made me realize, like, we need
to do this.
We do need to date each other. We do need to continually fall in love with each other. And I will say, ever since we have been doing that, our relationship's improved. Mm-hmm. And not that there was much to improve on.
No, but we're stronger. Number 3 is kind of like number 2. We've already talked about it. Get to know them.
Yeah, remain curious.
And get to know their dreams, their fears, their passions. Like, get to know everything about them. Number 4 is to appreciate them.
Yep.
I think that is so helpful in a marriage. Like, when Elijah gives me a thank you note. Okay, here's actually a good example. You and I are actually, something we do is that if one of us does the dishes or does a task that's, far from awesome, you and I think we're really good at being like, hey, like, thanks for doing the dishes tonight, or hey, thanks for cleaning the bathroom, or hey, thanks for working with one of our babies, because that was really nice of you. And I think that goes a long way, because like I actually have no problem, taking care of our family, and
agree.
You don't either, doing the grunt work. But to hear that, hey, like, thank you, it's very nice, and it makes you want to keep doing it.
You're
like,
welcome.
Oh, you do appreciate and see my efforts. Like, that matters to me.
Yeah, I agree. Your dad's actually a good example.
My dad is actually a really good example.
He's always quick to.
I remember as a little girl, I would do tasks, and he would always thank me for them. And I was his kid. He was paying for everything. He was entitled to my help because, like, he was, providing for everything. But he always said thank you.
He still does.
And he still does. And it always makes me want to help him.
Yeah. Number 5. So there was actually 5, not 6. 5 suggestions is honor their dreams. Nothing more destroying to a relationship than somebody that belittles your dreams and doesn't support you. Mm-hmm. And so if you are wanting to be in a committed relationship, honor their dreams, support their dreams, believe in their dreams more than they do themselves.
I believe in Elijah.
I believe in Meg.
Elijah's going to change this world before anyone.
and I truly believe that. And because of that, I can say I have complete faith in my wife because she has complete faith in me. And so if you want to be in love for a lifetime and beyond, honor each other's dreams, support each other. So let's see here. So there's a couple things that I want to end with. One is a poem by Spencer Michael Free. And it says, "'Tis the human touch in this world that counts, the touch of your hand and mine, which means far more to the fainting heart than shelter and bread and wine. For shelter is gone when the night is o'er, and bread only lasts a day, but the touch of the hand and the sounds of the voice sing on in the soul always."
And then the last thing I want to share is I think the epitome of mine and Elijah's relationship, as well as any healthy relationship, is this idea that we're best friends. And this is something that we actually affirm to ourselves, like our relationship every night. We always are like, Elijah, like, thank you so much for being my best friend. And Elijah will be like, Meg, like, thank you so much for being my best friend. And so we get to go through life as best friends. And I think that is just so special. And so I think a really great goal for any relationship would be to be and forever remain best friends.
Yeah. So if you're wondering on how to figure out if he or she is the one, ask yourself the 5 questions that we gave at the beginning of this podcast. And then the remainder of the podcast will help you love for a lifetime and beyond.
So thank you so much for being here today. We are grateful for you guys.
We are always very appreciative that you decided to listen and to watch.
Yes. So until next time, we'll see you later.
Peace.